Welcome, Rope Breakers. This is Before the Bell, episode number 2. If you're sitting there thinking, wait a minute, episode number 2, what happened to episode number 1? You missed out. We shot episode number 1 this past Sunday before Night of Champions, and it was one hell of a show. And by we, I mean me and my special guest, the one, the only Aussie, made an appearance on Before the Bell. And just gotta say, it was a great show. I mean, come on, anything Aussie touches turns to gold. I think we all know that by now. But that was episode 1, so after you get done with this, hop on over. You're already on the YouTube channel. Go check it out. It's a half an hour long. It's definitely worth your time to check out. I know you guys don't really care too much about the predictions for Night of Champions, seeing that it's obviously over, but go on, see some familiar faces, and while you're at it, subscribe to our YouTube channel. You know, that way you can keep up to date on all things rope break. And while you're at that, head on over to Twitter. Follow us on Twitter at Rope Break Wrestling. On Facebook at facebook.com/ropebreakwrestling. You want to keep up to date with all things rope break. Rope break is a lifestyle, guys. It's a lifestyle. I say this all the time. It is a lifestyle. And if you're not living the rope break life, well, then you're not really living. So get on over here. And before I start this show, it wouldn't be a show with me, your host, Matt Donato, if I didn't just quickly throw in there, if you got friends who don't know anything about rope break, you're being neglectful. You're a terrible friend. Get them over to the lifestyle. Show them what living is all about. Get them out of the bleachers. Get them away from cage side. Because let's face it, guys. You know, cage side is okay. You know, the bleachers are alright. But I think we all know the truth here. Is that you're not going to get it any better than in the ring with rope break. And that's not me being biased, guys. That is just a fact of life. So enough of me plugging rope break. Oh yeah, before I forget, obviously go over and check out ropebreakwrestling.com. Bookmark us while you're there. That way it's easy. You'll keep up to date on everything we're doing, all of the news, rumors, podcasts, everything that we do on our website. We do it all. We are a one-stop shop for everything. You know, we're for the fans, by the fans. That's why I'm doing this podcast. We're for you guys. I'm doing this for you guys. You know, this is something I've wanted to do for a while now. Something I've always been interested in doing. I'm excited that I finally get to do this. And I hope you guys enjoy this. You know, I know the last episode that I did of this was a video cast. But just so you guys know, this show is, in fact, an audio cast. I chose that format for you guys to make it easier to listen to. That way you don't have to go into YouTube and watch this video. I'm going to try to upload these into iTunes and maybe OneCast or something similar for Android. That way you can just get this on your phone. You can throw in a pair of headphones when you got to do something you don't want to do. Maybe you're cleaning your house. Maybe you're at work and you're stocking shelves and you're thinking, man, this sucks. I wish I had some rope break in my life, but I really just don't want to watch a video. I don't have time. Well, that is exactly what Before the Bell is. You throw a pair of headphones in, and you let me entertain you while you do what you really don't want to do. I know you'd rather be listening to me. You'd rather be watching Aussie on the Sharpshoot or watching past episodes of Raw React. But you know what? Sometimes you just can't. And when you can't, you always have Before the Bell. So throw in those headphones, sit back, relax, do your job, whatever it is you're doing, and let me entertain you for as long as humanly possible. And with all of that plugging, that was a lot of plugging, guys, so I apologize. That was just ridiculous. I'm sure people already turned off this podcast. Man. So I'm going to really start getting into this. You know, Before the Bell is just, it's literally me and you talking about professional wrestling, the things that we love. You know, we all are pro wrestling fans. That's why we're here. And when I say for the fans, by the fans, I mean, I am a fan just like you guys. I love the business. I love this industry. This is my passion. And That is how Rope Break got started. Three friends getting together, all with the common love of pro wrestling, and starting something to give back because we were tired of all these other sites doing nothing. You go to, a different site and Stephanie McMahon breaks a nail working out. You know what? Nobody gives a shit. Nobody cares about Stephanie McMahon breaking a nail. We want the nitty gritty. We want to get down deep into that dirt, into that mud, into that grit. That is what Road Break's about. We want to deliver you the best possible news and rumors we can. And that's just it. I know I said that the plugging was over, but hey, this is my show. I lied. I'm going to keep on plugging away. But this show, I'm going to hit all the hottest news and rumors that I can. Anything that's tickled my fancy. Anything that's really caught my attention in the past weeks, months, years. Anything that's relevant, even if it's irrelevant, doesn't matter. If it's wrestling related, I'll probably talk about it. This is Before the Bell, so let's get started. First and foremost, I want to talk about Prince Devitt and his name change. It was talked about yesterday. It was all over all the news sites. Rope Break has it up at ropebreakwrestling.com. So when you're done with this, if you haven't heard about this, you can go read the article. But I'm going to give you a lot of the information here. So Prince Devitt, obviously being signed by the WWE, huge indie star within New Japan Pro Wrestling. I mean, the guy is one of my all-time favorite wrestlers. I really enjoy his wrestling. But that's a topic for a completely different day. Right now we're talking about the fact that the WWE has officially given Prince Devitt a brand new name, and that is, drumroll please, Finn Balor. Now I know what you're thinking, Finn Balor, that's a stupid name. Hell, that's what I thought when I heard it. My first instinct was, I'm not liking it, and you know what, it had nothing to do with the name itself. I think we can all agree, none of us are really mad at the name itself. The majority of us are mad that they changed Prince Devitt's name. We're mad at the change. Now, we want things to stay the same. We want Prince Devitt to be Prince Devitt, but it's not going to be that way. When you come into the WWE, it's a brand new ball game. You need to reinvent yourself. So it doesn't bother me as much that they're changing the name. And the name is actually pretty cool once you learn about it. And I had, I got some knowledge laid down on me when I first heard the name. And both names come from Irish mythology. And Finn is actually the name of an Irish hero who was also a giant and a complete badass. And Balor is the name of a god who is said to have one eye that can set the earth on fire. So this guy is also a badass. So you got two badasses for one guy's name. To me, that fits. I mean, it's definitely going to take some getting used to, no doubt about it. I mean, when I first heard it, I thought, Finn, what is he, a goddamn fish? But you know what? It's going to take some getting used to. And I know a lot of people were upset about this, and they were also upset about Kenta's name change. And I went on a big rant about this on React After Raw, which, by the way, shameless plug, warning, it airs every single Monday night immediately following Raw, so jump onto YouTube and subscribe to our channel. That way you can always stay in touch. That way you'll never miss another episode of React. Anyway, I went on a big rant about this on React After Raw because, it really bothered me. Kenta, if you haven't heard, because you're obviously living under a rock and that's the only explanation for it. Kenta, they changed his name, or he rather changed his name to Hideo Itami. And people were pissed. Oh, here we go again, WWE screwing up another great talent. But what they're not understanding is Kenta chose to change his name, and he chose the name that he wanted to change to. WWE had nothing to do with this. They brought him in and presented him as Kenta, so that people knew who he was, so people knew who he was coming in. Now he's going to change his name, and in his own words, he wants to establish himself in a business he's never been a part of. He doesn't want to be handed anything. When he's coming into this company, he knows there's other guys who have worked hard for where they are, and he does not want to steal their spotlight. So, out of respect for them and wrestling in general, he's coming in, and he chose a new name, Hideo Itami, which is the name of one of his heroes. And I did some research on it, and the only Hideo Itami that I could find that had any kind of Japanese origin was a baseball player that went by that name. So I'm assuming that that's possibly the guy that he's talking about. It could be completely wrong. If you guys know who Hideo Itami is or know which one he's talking about, definitely let me know. Leave a comment, Twitter, Facebook, wherever you can. Let me know. I am curious to find that out. But anyway, you know, people were just pissed off about it. And you know what? I actually liked it right away. I thought it was a good sounding name. I mean, it wasn't like Kung Fu Naki or, you know, Yoshitatsu, which is, I mean, that's stereotypical Japanese name. It sounded like it's a name that he picked, and he chose it so that he could start fresh and build his name like everybody else out of respect. I don't know about anybody else, but I don't know how you could get mad at that. To me, that's amazing. You know, I love Kenta. He's my top 10 all-time favorite wrestlers of every single generation. He's just that great to me. So yeah, I'm biased, but you know, that just makes me respect him even more. The fact that he comes in and has so much respect for these other guys and chooses to change his name. He could come in as Kenta and be this big blowout star, overshadow all these guys, and become famous. But he's not doing that because he loves the business so much, and he respects these other guys who have busted their ass to get where they are. You know, he's coming in and he's, you know, making a new name for himself in a brand new environment. And you know, I think that, you know, whether or not, we don't know that Prince Devitt didn't pick this name. He may very well have. You know, the fact that it is actually well thought out. It sounds stupid off the tongue right away. I think it's a name that we're gonna have to get used to for sure. But you know, when you look deeper into it, it is actually very well thought out of a name. He is Irish, so the fact that it has some very significant Irish roots to it, other than just something stupid like Seamus. You know, this actually has some roots to Ireland folklore. So, you know, I would like to assume that he did actually come up with this name because it seems a little bit too intelligent for something that the WWE would come up with. I mean, we almost got, what was it, Brian Peacock? Or something to that effect with Daniel Bryan. And thank the good Lord, Sir William Regal stepped in and said, no, we're not going to have a Brian Peacock on our roster. And they changed it to Daniel Bryan. Thank God. Could you imagine the new WWE World Heavyweight Champion, Brian Peacock? God, that would be awful. So I'm, you know, taking this as we could have gotten a hell of a lot worse. I mean, he could be coming out as Lucky Charms, wearing a top hat and belt buckle, you know, with a pot of gold in his arm, doing a Irish jig down the ramp. He still very well could do that as Finn Balor, but right now it seems okay. We'll see where they go with this. We got to be a little patient. If after a while it still doesn't stick with, I mean, it's completely your choice, but if after a while, you know, they're not doing anything with him, then that's the reason to get frustrated with WWE. But a name is just a name. You know, he could make this into something fantastic, and honestly, we really just don't know until it happens. But can we talk about John Cena's shirt real quick? Is that alright with you guys? I kind of want to talk about John Cena's shirt from this past Monday Night Raw. It's been on my mind for a while now. This isn't even something that I thought about talking about, but it just popped in my head, and this is definitely something that I think I want to address. No, this is what Before the Bell's all about. This wasn't even on a list of things to talk about. Just popped in my head, and I figured, you know what? The hell with it. I'm just going to talk about it. John Cena shirt from last week. I'm talking about the one that he came out with that said, "Keep calm and never give up." First and foremost, that shirt matched nothing that he was wearing. So I am completely under the impression, and until proven otherwise, I completely 100% believe that he was throwing that shirt before he went out to his match because it's something that's not selling well on the WWE shop. I swear, I'm not even kidding. I feel like as he was running out, somebody threw him the shirt and said, "Hey, John, throw this on. We need to make sales on this. It's not pushing very well. We need you to go out there and wear this so people will buy it." Sure, no problem. So he puts it on, matches nothing he's wearing, not even the same color as his armbands, looks completely weird. And to top that all off, the whole keep calm fad isn't really relevant anymore. I mean, that was a huge thing for a while, but it really isn't relevant. I feel like Vince McMahon, is that stereotypical 70-year-old man who's so out of touch with pop culture. Like he's just getting into emails. He's talking to Triple H. "I'll send you an electronic mail." He's sitting back in his office still rocking a BlackBerry from '05. The one with the little scroll thing in the middle. Yeah, those are cool. Um, he's like so far behind on what's popular. Like, all the kids are doing this these days. It really need to kind of step up on that. The reason they're not selling is because the keep calm thing isn't really relevant. I mean, yeah, some people still do it, some people still buy it, but as far as a whole, like, there's not really a big market for it to begin with. So, it could very well be a new shirt that they're trying to push. Maybe it is an old one, that they had when it was popular and nobody cared enough to buy it. But they decided to throw it on Raw last week for some reason. I don't know. It was just odd. It was kind of a stupid shirt. It was kind of plain. And actually, Alec touched on this a little bit. It looked like something that you would get for like your local T-ball team. Like, you'd go down to the local T-shirt store and have them for like $5. I don't know what the hell T-shirt store I'm going to. That's freaking cheap. I'm going to obviously a good one because $5 a T-shirt or $5 for, yeah, it's pretty cheap. But going to a local T-shirt place and having them whip you something up real quick, that's exactly what it looked like. It looked terribly made. It was just a mess. I don't know. That's enough ranting on John Cena's T-shirt. Just kind of wanted to throw that in there. How about Vince McMahon flipping the script for Monday Night Raw? What I mean by that, if you haven't heard this news either, Vince on last week's Monday Night Raw, at the very last minute, I'm talking 6:45, rewrote the entire show. He made them rewrite the show like an hour and a half, 2 hours before they went on air. That's not a lot of time to rewrite an entire show. And actually, by the ending segment, they weren't even, or by the time it started, they weren't even finished writing the entire show. Now, I didn't think last week was a bad show at all. I thought that it had a lot of continuity, where they have a lot of continuity errors on a daily basis. So it was refreshing to see, they did follow through on Night of Champions. They did follow through on the storylines. They started the show with John Cena, Dean Ambrose, Seth Rollins, the whole authority angle. And then they finished the show with the same people. So you got the feeling that it was all connected. And that really made the show much more bearable, for me at least. And, I really overall did not think it was a bad show. Yes, they had the bunny wrestling Slater Gator, or whatever it was. But I'm trying to block that out of my memory. I'm trying to forget that actually even happened. But I mean, other than that match in and of itself, I really didn't think it was that bad of a Raw. I'm not going to go into detail on Raw. If you want to know, you know, my full opinion on this past week's Monday Night Raw, go check out React After Raw on YouTube right here. Like I said, subscribe to the channel. Subscribe. That way you don't got to keep coming back and trying to look for it. It'll be right there. Check your subscriptions. Boom. Rope Break Wrestling's YouTube channel. Right there. And you can watch all the React After Raws you want. But I have my full opinion on that right up there. But he flipped the script that late, or that late into the day. He flipped it right before Raw even started. He decided, you know what? We're gonna scrap it. We're gonna rewrite Raw right here, right now. That's a lot to ask of your creative team. Now, I'm curious to know what you guys think. Do you think it was, good or bad that he did that? You also gotta wonder, what would the show have been like had he not done that? What made him decide to scrap the entire show? It's not like he scrapped a segment. He scrapped an entire show right before they went on air. So it makes you wonder, what was written that made him decide that he didn't want to do anything on the show that they had written. Had to be something. And would it have been better off to just leave it? That's something we'll never know. But what do you guys think? Do you think that was a good decision? Do you think that, the show... What did you think of Monday Night Raw? Did you think it was a good show? Do you think we benefited from him making them rewrite the show that soon? I mean, he's been doing it for a long time, but, I think that's a lot to ask of anybody personally, and I honestly think you cannot write an amazing show with that little bit of amount of time. I mean, you're cutting it real close. I mean, you're rushing to get things done, and these small details get out of hand. And while I thought it was a more compact Raw, that's probably why, because they were trying to just write things so quickly to get it out there that they weren't overthinking things. So I'm kind of on the fence. I think in some aspects of it, it did benefit, but I think that we would have gotten a lot more out of the show, had they been given more time to do so, to write it. But like I said, let me know what you guys think. I'm curious to know. I always want to know what you guys think. Like I said at the beginning, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Facebook, right here on YouTube. I will read your comments, I will listen to you, and I will try to answer you. If you ask a question too, for next week's show, if you guys want to ask questions, I'm just going to lay it out right now. Send me a message on any of those social medias that I just mentioned, Facebook, Twitter, and right here on YouTube. Leave a question, and I will try to answer it on the next show. I'll give you a nice shout out too. So, how you guys feeling right now about the rumor that Lesnar might not actually make it to Hell in a Cell? How you guys feeling about that? I know personally I'm absolutely pissed off at that. That's absolute nonsense. To me, it makes absolute no sense to have a pay-per-view without a champion on it. Now, before I get completely worked up, just keep in mind now that this is just a rumor, so it's not set in stone. But, if this is true and they are actually thinking about this, it's absolutely ridiculous. The plan right now that's set in place for Hell in a Cell, according to the rumor, is to have John Cena face off with Dean Ambrose, where the winner of that match will face Seth Rollins in a Hell in a Cell, and the loser will face Randy Orton. Now, somebody explain to me who wins there, because we all know that Cena is not going to go under to either Ambrose or Rollins. Cena's not going to lose. When you're building a guy to go after Lesnar, we haven't finished that story from Night of Champions. Cena didn't get the victory on Brock Lesnar, but again, he didn't lose. So, I know a lot of people don't want to see Brock Lesnar versus Cena because they're tired of it. I want to see it because I just want to finish this current storyline that they're working on. I feel like they're leaving it wide open. Obviously, Seth Rollins interrupted him and cost him the match, So they're going to have that rivalry, but it doesn't make sense to not have Cena versus Lesnar, because now it's just going to be dragged on until Survivor Series in November. And that doesn't make sense either. But, I mean, Cena's definitely not going to lose to Ambrose. And he's not going to lose to Seth Rollins, so what's going on here? I mean, it's a lose-lose for everybody. Ambrose goes against, Randy Orton and wins, but, I mean, there's no build between Orton and Ambrose. The build that they've been building, and, I mean, we have a few weeks, but, I mean, the build that's been going on right now is Kane versus Ambrose, which is not a match I want to see on a pay-per-view, but, I mean, it would make more sense than Ambrose Orton. I mean, this whole thing just doesn't make any sense to me. John Cena is pissed off because he says he had Lesnar beat. That's what he said. The post Night of Champions Raw, I had Brock Lesnar beat. So obviously he's still pissed. The story that you're telling me now is John Cena is pissed off that he had Brock Lesnar beat, but Seth Rollins came in and ruined it. That's perfectly understandable. So John Cena goes, and to keep Seth Rollins out and to make sure that they can't interrupt again, he's going to call for a Hell in a Cell match. Makes perfect sense. We're at Hell in a Cell. Him versus Brock in a cage. Cool. But instead of getting something like that makes sense, we're getting John Cena versus Dean Ambrose, which nobody wins. You have two baby faces. That looks terrible for Ambrose. Ambrose is going to get booed over Cena, or vice versa. It doesn't make any sense. I don't see, people are going to be for Cena, and I don't see Cena going, getting beaten by Ambrose, because I don't in the slightest think that the Cena Brock storyline is over. So if you're going to build Cena up to go and challenge Brock Lesnar, is it going to be believable to have him go and challenge Brock Lesnar after he just lost to Dean Ambrose? No. Nope. So he loses to Dean Ambrose. We get another terrible Randy Orton John Cena match. It probably won't be a terrible match, but I think I speak for most people when I'm saying, we're tired of seeing that match. It's happened 1,000 times. It's not something I want to see, especially something that I don't want to continue to see at a pay-per-view. We've seen all that they can do. They have great matches, but I'm not interested anymore. I'd much rather see Cena versus Brock, where Cena loses finally to Brock because they're in a cage. Now that Cena's lost to Brock, he can go and he can lose to Seth Rollins. He can go and he can lose to Dean Ambrose, and it won't really hurt his credibility because they're not building him towards anything anymore. He lost fair and square to Brock Lesnar in a cage in a match that he picked. So now is your time to go. Your Survivor Series. Have him put somebody over at the third biggest the fourth biggest pay-per-view, of the year. I mean, obviously, WrestleMania, SummerSlam, and Royal Rumble are your first three. Then you got Survivor Series. It's your fourth biggest pay-per-view of the year. It's the fourth biggest, but it's still huge. Put somebody over. That just makes sense to me. But having Cena beat Dean Ambrose and then, go on to fight Seth Rollins, who, once again, it would make no sense to... And, if they go down the other route, which is another DQ win, we're gonna have multiple disqualification wins with the Authority interfering, and I don't want to see that either. So this, to me, right now, as it stands, is a lose-lose, and I'm not happy to see any of this. Makes zero sense to me that they would not have the champion on their show. It's one thing not to have him on Monday Night Raw or SmackDown, which that also kind of annoys me, but if they do it right and they write it properly and they book it right, then it can work. But under no circumstances should you have a pay-per-view without your main champion. It's just, I don't care how you book it. To me personally, that is stupid. You cannot have a pay-per-view without your main champion being there. Does that mean Brock Lesnar won't interfere? He might, but even still, that's dumb. It's all just so they can prolong this match till Survivor Series. You know, they want John Cena, I think, to put him over at Survivor Series instead of one of these lesser pay-per-views. But they're not going about it the right way. You know, like I said, I'd much rather see John Cena versus Brock Lesnar in a Hell in a Cell, just to get it out of the way so that you could say Brock Lesnar beat him fair and square. Then go on to Survivor Series, and use that as an opportunity to put these guys over on the fourth biggest pay-per-view of the year. Just drives me nuts that this writing is just garbage. It's terrible. The bookings, as where it stands, stupid. And I know I'm getting worked up. It's just a rumor. It's not set in stone. But, you know, I'm reacting to this as if it were legitimate. Because this is something that the WWE would consider. That's just where they're at right now with their writing. It doesn't make sense, but this is what they do. I mean, I really just don't understand him not being there. And, you know, this is gonna... I just don't see this helping anybody. Unless they really, you know, pull the rug out from under me and, you know, really surprise me. You know, and give me something unexpected and actually have Cena put over these two guys. But even, like I was saying, even in that respect, it still doesn't make sense because he puts over these two guys. That's great. Wow, Cena put somebody over finally. But now I'm not really buying the legitimacy of Brock Lesnar versus Cena at Survivor Series. So I don't see Cena losing to either of those two. So, you know, now this match is completely pointless. You know, it should have been put Dean Ambrose in a gauntlet where the final guy is Seth Rollins. There you go. I just wrote the frickin' pay-per-view for you. It's not that hard. Dean Ambrose in a gauntlet because he's being punished. Kane comes out first, followed by Randy Orton, and then Seth Rollins. Done. You don't need that. Got all your main guys on your... All the authority are now on your pay-per-view in one match, and I saved you time. They could have an awesome gauntlet match. It's a cool stipulation. It would make sense. They're trying to punish Dean Ambrose, and they're giving him Seth Rollins last because now he's weakened. And it would really put over Dean Ambrose, who, you know, is the number 2 guy right now. You know, they're trying to really push him for the main event, and, you know, that would just work out. And then you could put Cena versus Lesnar in the cage. Done. You know, I mean, you could have the gauntlet first, and then I don't know, have Seth. The reason that the cage is there, like I said before, the reason the cage is there is because he doesn't want the authority to interfere anymore, and he could even say something like, "I'll deal with you guys later." So after, you know, he'll lose to, you know, Lesnar, and he'll be upset. You know, maybe he'll go after Rollins, and maybe he'll put Rollins over after a loss to Dean Ambrose. Rollins needs to be picked back up. What better way to do that than to have him beat John Cena at Survivor Series? And then Cena can go out, he can get, you know, all the surgeries he needs. It's that simple. But I think a gauntlet match for Ambrose would make perfect sense. It just makes sense. You know, because like I said, he's being pushed as the number 2 main event star right now because Reigns is out. And you know, honestly, it's tough for me because, you know, there have been rumors for a while now that the WWE doesn't see Dean Ambrose as a main event type talent. You know, and a lot of people got really upset at that the IWC exploded. People got pissed off. And I understand it. I understand, you know, the anger. I get it. But, you know, and I'm a huge Dean Ambrose mark. I love the guy. He's one of my all-time favorites on the roster. You know, I love the stuff he did on the indies. But I tend to agree, and I know this isn't going to be popular, but I tend to agree with the WWE. I don't think that his character is suited for the main event. I just don't. Not saying that one day he couldn't pop in there and surprise me, and that may happen. He could be in the main event and hold his spot well and be a champion, a WWE champion, and surprise the hell out of me. But I just don't think that that is what's going to happen. I don't think his character is suited to be a WWE champion. And let's face it, for me, the only way that I see you being a main eventer is by holding the championship. I don't think you can be considered a main eventer unless you've held the championship, the WWE championship, at least once in your career. You have to hold it at least once before I can even look at you as a main eventer. It's not enough to just be in the ring with a main eventer, you don't become a main eventer, just by association. I mean, ask Cesaro. He's wrestled Cena on multiple occasions and have had outstanding matches on both occasions. But is he a main eventer? No. I mean, you could say yes, but his theme song. I mean his sirens in his theme song say otherwise. The fact that he lost to Sheamus says otherwise. He lost to frickin' Sheamus. I mean, are you shitting me? I mean, let's talk about that for a minute. We'll get back to Ambrose. Don't let me forget about Dean Ambrose. We're gonna talk about Cesaro. See, going right off into a tangent. How do you have a guy that talented? Granted, he's not the best on the mic, but you make him good on the mic. This is a talent you cannot afford to let go. This guy is phenomenal. Everything he does in the ring is spectacular. He is innovative. Go back and watch Sheamus versus Cesaro at Night of Champions. That move that he pulled out of his ass, the one where he had him in some sort of torture rack type maneuver and turned it into a power slam. I've never seen that before in my life. He does things like that constantly. That's the guy you need on your roster. A guy who comes out with moves like that out of nowhere. It's just phenomenal. Sheamus looked like a freaking slob, as usual. I get the feeling like Sheamus is arrogant. I don't know the guy personally, and this isn't going off of anything and nothing against the guy. I just don't like him. I don't know why I don't like him. I never have. But I feel like he gets in the ring and feels like he's like this top guy, so he's always trying to call the match himself. He's always trying to get in the ring, and by call the match, I mean he's the one who's directing the match in the ring. He's the one calling all the moves. And I feel like even if he isn't the one who's supposed to be calling the matches, he still tries to. Because there always seems to be confusion in the ring when he's in there. Like, they'll call one move and do something completely different, and it makes it look crappy. He did it multiple times at Night of Champions. He did it the following night on Raw. It just never fails with that guy. Ugh. It's enough of my hate rant of Sheamus. I just can't stand the guy. Something about him I just don't like. But Cesaro is so talented. They need to do something with him. This is just getting ridiculous. This is the guy that you can say, I'm not saying he's buried, but he's being wasted. I think that's the best way to describe it, is he's being wasted. And it's sad because he's one of my all-time favorites. It's enough ranting on that. I didn't forget, I was talking about Dean Ambrose, so we're gonna backtrack. We're gonna scoot on back to Ambrose being pushed in the main event, and me saying that I agree with the WWE that he's not main event material. Not that he doesn't have the skill, but his character I don't feel is necessarily suited to be a WWE champion. And like I was saying, I really feel like you have to be a WWE champion in order to be, at least for me anyway, to consider you in the main event. What do you guys think? What makes a main eventer? Do you guys think that you have to be a WWE champion to be a main eventer? I mean, in the terms of what a main eventer is to me, yes. Eddie Guerrero had main event talent, but he wasn't really considered a main eventer until he won the WWE Undisputed Championship. John Cena, he was
I just think that you have to be. It's hard because I think that for me to truly consider you in the main event, like John Cena was a main event guy, but he wasn't truly a main eventer until he won his first WWE championship. I mean, that's just the way that I always see it. And I'm like I said, I'm curious to think. Excuse me, I'm curious to hear what you guys think. I'm not curious to think. I'm curious to hear what you guys think about whether or not the WWE Championship is what makes you a main eventer. And I just don't see Dean Ambrose in that role because when you're WWE champion, you need to be the face of the company, something that they can sell. And I really feel like Dean Ambrose has a cult following. Like yes, he gets a loud pop on Raw every night when he comes out, but how many of those people that cheer for him are running out and buying his merchandise? Probably not a lot. And when you think in terms of business, the WWE at the end of the day is a business. And when you think in terms of that, when you're WWE champion, you need to be able to sell merchandise. Period. You need to be able to sell t-shirts, and beyond just selling merchandise, you need to be able to sell out arenas. I don't see Dean Ambrose as a man who can sell out an entire arena like John Cena, like Stone Cold, The Rock, Hulk Hogan, guys of that nature. I just don't see him in that light. You know, I think it's pointless to put a guy in the I think he'll fall from the main event spotlight if he doesn't get the championship at least once. You know, I would much rather see Dean Ambrose being pushed, you know, in the Intercontinental spotlight eventually. I think that would be better off for him. I'd rather see him succeed in the mid-card than fail in the main event. And I think he will fail in the main event. Not because he's not talented enough, but because he just doesn't have the character for it. He's very character-based. You know, it's part of my struggle with seeing a guy like Bray Wyatt as champion. You know, I can't see him as being a more than one-time champion. I could see Ambrose get it once, have a nice little run with it a minute, and then pass it along and never get it again. And my problem with that and my fear with that is a lot of the guys who do that always seem to drop, and then you never hear from them again. You know, I would like to see Dean Ambrose be an Intercontinental Champion, have amazing feuds in the mid-card. I think, you know, there's a stigma with the mid-card that once you're a part of it, you're buried. Well, he's Intercontinental Champion, so that means, you know, something must be up. They don't like him. He's being buried. And I can understand, you know, by how they've, you know, presented the titles in the past, how they've really gone from this prestigious, you know, at one point in time, the Intercontinental Championship was just as popular as the WWE Championship was. I mean, it was looked at as this huge title, and then it slowly started to become a paperweight over time. And, you know, now it's finally starting to get some more recognition. We're getting a more solid storyline surrounding it. You know, with Bad News Barrett picking it up first, I think that really, really brought attention to it. The fact that they dedicated 2 Monday Night Raw to the Intercontinental Championship, you know, whether it was by design or, you know, by fault of Daniel Bryan not actually being able to be there, it still helped. And, you know, now you have Ziggler and Miz, you know, Miz capturing the title, and then Ziggler now is champion again after Raw, which I thought was meaningless. And once again, if you want to get my full thoughts on that, Raw React, I go on a long rampage on how meaningless that was. But anyway, back to my point. Believe me, I do have a point, and I will get there eventually. Just stick with me. You know, pause this, go get a drink of water, go take a pee break. Do what you gotta do, and then come on back, and I promise you I will get to my point. Put him in the Intercontinental Championship spot. Give him a run with it. And, you know, he's got the talent to make that division huge. There's nothing wrong with being a long-time Intercontinental Champion. I know people get on the case, Mr. Perfect should have been a heavyweight champion. Mr. Perfect should have been a WWE champion. That may very well be true, because he did have the talent for it. He was great on the mic and in the ring. He was perfect. But, you know, you look back on his career, and, I can't complain about how awesome he was with that Intercontinental Championship. He brought prestige to it. When he held it, you knew it meant something. And I think that, when you held that title back then, you were the man. You didn't have to be the WWE champion because you were Intercontinental champion. That was just as good. So, the people who complain about that are the people who are thinking in terms of this generation, are thinking of the way that the IC title is treated nowadays. Back then, that title was just as popular as the WWE championship. It was just as big. When you had that, like I said, you were the man. So he didn't need to be WWE champion because technically he was. Now, obviously, nowadays, it's not that way. And, I wish it was. Intercontinental Championship is my all-time favorite. But, I think they could get it back there. And I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to have Ambrose in that spot because they could really use him to help rebuild that division. I think he could do awesome work there. I look at him as a Brian Pillman type character, and Brian Pillman's another guy that I just couldn't see within that character. Not that I can't see Dean Ambrose as champion, it's just I can't see his character as champion. That's what I'm getting at. See, I told you I'd get to my point. I'm not lying to you. Would I lie to you? I wouldn't lie to you. I got to my point. His character, I don't see, being able to be champion. Dean Ambrose, absolutely. Brian Pillman, absolutely. But Brian Pillman's character, I don't see, as that champion. I think he might even be better off without a title, to be quite honest. I think they could, fit him into different storylines and not really ever give him a title. I don't think it's that bad to really never have a title on you. I think, people get really uptight about it, but like I said, I'd much rather see him succeed in the mid-card than fail in the main event. And I'm afraid that, most people who fail in the main event don't just drop back down to the mid-card. They drop off the map. So that's my fear for him because he's super talented. But, at the end of the day, Dean Ambrose could easily be WWE champion, but his character couldn't. And that's pretty much it. It's getting past the 45-minute mark here. And it's getting about time to wrap this thing up. I don't want to hold you too long. This is only my second show. I decided to go about 45 minutes, give or take. To give you guys a chance to watch it and not feel too overwhelmed with too much crap going on. If you like the length of this show and you think that 45 minutes, is a good time slot, then let me know. If you think it should go longer, or if you think it should go shorter, let me know. If you have any concerns, any questions, anything that you think that I should add to the show, things that you want me to talk about. If you have questions you want me to answer live on this show, then you can tweet me at Rope Break Wrestling. You can tweet me at Real Matt Donato. You can find me on Facebook at facebook.com/RopeBreakWrestling. And right here on YouTube, Rope Break Wrestling's YouTube channel. Subscribe, follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and always check out RopeBreakWrestling.com. Like I said before, bookmark us. That way you never have to search for us. You'll always know where we are. And send me your questions. I would love to answer some questions. I like hearing from you guys. Let me know what you think overall. And I will do my best to make the show as good as possible. I hope you guys enjoyed the second episode of Before the Bell. I know I sure as hell did. And, whether you gotta pull a McMahon and pull out that old BlackBerry and send me an electronic mail, or send me via carrier pigeon, whatever the hell you gotta do to send me a message and say, hey, this show absolutely sucks, or hey, this show is actually pretty good, but I think it should go a little bit shorter, I think it should go a little bit longer, or like I said, if you have a question, that you need me to answer, or that you want to hear, or if you have even a topic that you want me to talk about on this show that I haven't covered yet, then by all means let me know. But as always, I'm Matt Donato, and if you haven't joined the rope break lifestyle, then you're not really living. Tell your friends about us. Stop with all that nonsense. Get away from the bleachers. Get away from cage side, because like I said, those are okay, but nothing can compete with being in the ring with rope breaking. That's not me being biased. That is just a fact of life. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. I'm your host, like I said, Matt Donato. Has been the second episode of Before the Bell, and I will see you guys right back here, same time, same place.